What's up, everybody? My name is Maher Mezahi. I'm an African football journalist, and I've been covering African football for nearly a decade now. I can't believe I'm saying that. I've had the privilege of covering 3 African Cup of Nations tournaments, a few Champions League finals for various different media outlets, the BBC, Al Jazeera English, The Guardian. I immediately fell in love with African football because there are still human elements to the game, I think, that persist more than anywhere else in the world. Especially in this modern football ecosystem where everything is hyper commodified and sanitized, you still get very raw, real human stories in the African game. That's why, with the help of the great illustrator Widad, I put together this logo. And if you take a look at the logo, you'll find Yaya Toure as a youngster at the Mimosifcom Academy of ASEC Mimosa, playing barefoot. And this is a technique that they used at the academy because they believed that controlling the ball with your bare feet will eventually lend to more refined technique. It's something that's very African, you won't find anywhere else on the continent. There's a picture of Sadio Mane biting into this mango, and the story behind it is fascinating. Mane, as everybody knows, is from a very, very small village in Senegal named Bambali. When I speak to Senegalese journalists, they tell me that most Senegalese people didn't even know where Bambali was before Sadio Mane. And with his own money that he made as being a professional footballer, he ended up building a hospital in the village, and he's invested so much in there as well. But as they were getting ready to inaugurate the hospital, and there were these security officials and ministers and all these, very important people there, they inaugurated the hospital, and then Mane walked to his family house, and he picked a mango up off the ground, and he just took a big bite into it, skin and all. And everybody just started laughing because it really contrasted with, the pomp and the ceremony of the event. And he just proved that, in the end, he's just a kid from his grandma's house. You also have Riyad Mahrez, a similar story where he's in his grandmother's village in Beni Snus, specifically Lakhmis. And it's a very, very small village in extreme western Algeria, not very far from the Moroccan border. And Mahrez's ties to Algeria are very strong because he comes from this village. It's his father's village. And his father passed away when he was just a young man. And he would go back every summer. And you see him in this image, kicking a ball barefoot, not far from his grandmother's house, where sometimes, he sleeps on the floor. He'll just lay down a mat and a carpet and sleep on the floor. And eventually what happens is that he's kicking the ball barefoot, and the ball, just like any one of us playing football growing up, ends up being roofed, and he's trying to climb this sort of telephone pole to try and pick up the ball. And finally you have Robert Kidiapa sort of bouncing on his bum, that infamous celebration that we all learn to love, and again, very, very African in nature, something that you won't find anywhere else, and I think that encapsulates the fun aspect of the game. So those are the stories that always fascinated me, and that's really why I teamed together with Africa as a country, and I'm very, very happy and proud to announce that we're starting a new podcast. It's going to be called the African Five-A-Side Podcast, and it's going to be a place where I hope that we can come together on a weekly basis and sort of share these stories that really tell us more about the African continent via the prism of football. Instead of seasons, the African Five-A-Side Podcast is going to be broken down into match days. And each match day is going to consist of 5 episodes, and they're each going to have a specific theme. So for match day 1 of the African Five-A-Side Podcast, we're going to be examining African football's favorite heads of states, whether they're dictators or freedom fighters or admirable men. We're going to be examining how they employed and instrumentalized football for political or social ends. Other match days of the African Five-A-Side Podcast can include, African stadiums, most iconic national team jerseys, most memorable AFCONs. There are really an infinite amount of themes that we can sort of discover together. We're also going to have a weekly roundup, what happened in African football that week, whether it's, results, observations, talking about new competitions like the African Football League, the Champions League, and so many different things that's going to be coming out on a weekly basis. Finally, very, very, very happy to announce that the African Five-Side Podcast will take a month to cover the African Cup of Nations properly. It's my favorite tournament. It's honestly pretty much what I live for these days. We're going to be hoping to record at least 4 to 5 live podcasts from there, and hopefully also going to be providing nightly roundups of what happened in the AFCON in that day. So please, if you're at all interested in African football and the stories that make it what it is, please join us, subscribe to the YouTube channel. You're going to be finding the audio podcasts on any platform that you can find your podcasts on. And I guess let's get our mentals right, because next week we're going to be having our first match day and we're going to need to assemble the right squad. So until then, peace.